Hello and welcome to the Peels review of Super 8. I am Brandon and this is Evan.
Hello.
And we're going to give you our opinion of the new released blockbuster by J.J. Abrams, Super 8, about a group of kids who are creating a zombie movie for a film festival and get in a little bit of trouble along the way. So, Evan, what do you think of the movie?
Well, I think one thing too that goes along with the premise is this is J.J. Abrams basically homage to late 70s and early 80s like action kind of monster movies. Steven Spielberg's the executive producer of this flick, and I mean it's really like a love letter to Close Encounters of the Third Kind, E.T., and Spielberg even had a role in like a movie like The Goonies, and you have this group of kids. But overall, my opinions kind of go up and down. There's some high highs and some low lows, but um, it's a average to good movie all in all. And we'll get more into specifics. And one thing, we will be discussing some things that could be spoiler-ish, and so if you haven't seen the movie, you may want to avoid this until after you've seen it. But if you don't mind, we won't be giving away the whole movie or anything.
Mm-hmm. So, what were some of your favorite parts of the movie itself?
Well, like I said, it's really well done and well produced. And Abrams and Spielberg, I mean, those are two of the biggest names right now in cinema and TV. And they know how to produce and make a slick-looking film. And I mean, that comes across just in the setting. Like I said, it's a homage to 70s and late 80s. And it's set, I believe, in 1979 in a fictional Ohio town. And it just, I mean, it gets that across in how the characters are dressed and their haircuts and how everything looks, even the film itself. Everything just comes across like you're watching an older type film. But I mean, it's still up to today's standards. The kids are great. There's a group of like 4 or 5 boys, and then Ellie Fanning's the one that sticks out to my mind, playing kind of the lovish interest. I think she may be a year or two older than the other boys, and they've all seemed to have a crush on her and stuff, and she really knocks it out of the park. And I mean, you're watching these kids, and similar to the Goonies, but I don't think it hits on this point well enough. You see yourself and your friends doing the type of things these kids were doing. You might not have made a movie, but you played baseball with them. You did stuff where you kind of spent your whole summer together, and it's starting out there. So, I mean, it brings some fond childhood memories back, definitely.
Oh, nostalgia for sure. Now, how would you've mentioned the Goonies a couple of times, how would you compare that to a Stand By Me type of adventure?
It doesn't. It's sometimes there's inklings of it getting to that point, but it never like hits that home run and is like, oh, this is like there. I mean, sometimes you think it's going to get there. It's taking like minor steps there, but it just kind of drags. The movie definitely drags in places. And this starts in the things that I don't really like about it. It becomes formulaic and heavy-handed a lot. I mean, very heavy-handed where you know where things are going. And there were points where I sat there and was like, all right, I'm bored. Because along with them making this, it's a monster movie, kind of mystery. I mean, Abrams, if you're a fan of Lost or any of his other films, Cloverfield, and I mean, this goes back to a lot of people like Hitchcock even, you show less to build more suspense. And I really like that. But there's so many scenes where it's not showing the monster and you're focusing on the people that it just gets to the point that, yeah, I'm going to know what this monster looks like eventually. It's taking way too long. And you really don't care about that part of it. So there's things that don't really hit, like I was saying, and that's one of them. So it really dragged in certain areas.
Yeah.
It felt like, I think it's only an hour and 50 minutes, but it felt even longer to me. The pacing wasn't quite there.
Yeah. Now, special effects were obviously fantastic, a great part of the movie, but in terms of emotional catharsis, the main character loses his mom right at the beginning of the movie. And so that's a big part of the plot function, is that he's learning how to deal with losing his mom. So the focus is a lot on the child relationships, but the adult relationships or the adult character development is lacking a little bit.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about that?
I mean, I definitely agree with what you said. And in regard to the special effects, I definitely agree with you. The monster who you do eventually see, sort of, really was substandard, I think. You you get to see him, but at the same time, you don't really get a full sense of what it or he or she is, and that bothered me. It's like you have all this buildup, and then you never even really see what it is. It always seems kind of blurry or whatever. But yeah, in regard to the relationships, and the monster does play into these relationships definitely because it's a major storyline in the film. I never felt for these characters. At the same time, such effective filmmaking. I mean, with like 2 shots at the beginning of this movie, you get across something terrible has happened, and it's greatly affected this kid, and then you find out his mom died right away, and it's just boom, boom, like just with just scenery and setting and a couple of clips, it gets it across. But by the end of the film, all of these loose ends are tied up in like most films, and it has this tries. I mean, focus on the tries, this emotional punch, and I felt
It's
nothing.
cathartic effect.
Yeah, I didn't feel anything. I could, not that I could care less, but it didn't pack any punch for me whatsoever. It was like I was saying beforehand, it's heavy-handed. You'll notice them focusing on certain personal effects. Just they knock you over the head with it, and when they finally come to bear bigger impact on the plot, it's just like, obviously this was coming. You're just kind of waiting for it. It's not like that's like, it wasn't subtle at all, which if Abrams is known for Lost too, and it's done so much better in there with like subtle things that come, and it's kind of like this feeling that you're just like, it all comes together. Here it's just like, obviously that's how it's going to play out.
Yeah. Now you had expressed some distaste in Abrams' prior movies with his overuse of the lens flare. How did that play out in this movie for you?
I'll be honest, I was kind of blown away. I thought, if anything, because with Star Trek, people really, I mean, across the internet and critics, were just like, lens flare is ridiculous. So you would think, after reading that, you would think someone would sit down and be like, we overdid it. But it's almost more so in this late 70s, early 80s movie. And there are a couple times.
Maybe this is the scaled down part of what it used to be.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. But for anyone that's aware, lens flare is like a light source, like you can see some above us, and then it'll be streaked out across. And I've heard other reviewers say this, and even I thought, because we were at the movie theater, there's blue lights, and at some points, I honestly thought the projector of the film was screwed up, and I thought we were getting extra light. But once I heard the other reviewers, I was like, this must have been it for everyone. At certain times, it's used to great effect. At one of the ending scenes, you'll see like almost 2 lens flares, and I don't want to give away what happens, but the symmetry with what's going on there, I thought was used to great effect. If that was the only place in the movie, hit it out of the park. But it's so excessive. It's pretty maddening for me, and hopefully, maybe I'll ruin it if you haven't seen it, because you'll definitely start to notice it now that it's brought to your attention. But it's something you should be aware of and demand less of in films.
Yes. So, any final thoughts on Super 8 before we give a Peel rating?
Yeah, definitely. I want to say that, like, you'll see at the end of the film, when the credits are rolling, the kids are making this 8mm film. It's like a zombie flick, and you get to see the whole thing, which is really cool at the end. There's more emotion, and it's more fun to watch this 2 to 5 minute max film at the end than the actual movie. And that's not just like a knock. It's just very clever. It's funny, and it has these moments that are like I felt more for it. Maybe it's because we'd gone on this 2-hour adventure with them
to make it.
But it's just a lot more funny. Like I said, there's some high highs and some low lows with the film. It's a good kid flick. If I was 10 to 12 years old, especially, I think I'd love it. At the same time, there's enough horror-type elements with the monster thing. I wonder how it'll hit. But all in all, I think I give it 3 pills. I mean, just how we've talked about, there's a lot to discuss, like any Abrams film. Lost, obviously, is where he gets a lot of his credibility. So 3 peels for Super 8.
Well, you heard it from the Peel. Super 8 gets 3 peels. If you want to check some blockbuster out this summer, check it out.
And be sure to check us out at thepeelblog.tumblr.com. Thanks for joining us.